Welcome to Power Conversations and Connections with Susan. Tonight I am so excited. I'm not solo. I have what I think will be one of the best conversationalists that you've ever had, heard, listened to. Shan Brown is joining us. Shan is a dynamic woman, mother, wife, friend who has quite a story as it relates to what we're talking about. And tonight we're talking about evolving in friendships, self care, and healthy boundaries. Welcome to Power Conversations, Shan.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited and honored and humbled.
Yes, same here. So let's get at it.
Okay.
So when I think about evolving in friendships, right? I think about that. I think I've had the pleasure, the honor of having close knit friends all of my life, but not the same friends in the same circles.
Okay.
And I don't know that I have, until maybe the last 5 or 6 years, evolved into making sure that my self care, me, was a part of that. That reciprocity was a key piece, right? And establishing those boundaries. So, where are you in that whole evolving process?
Whew, I would have to say at this particular moment in my life, this is a season of separation. It's a season of separation, and it's a season of isolation, and it's also a season of restructuring my boundaries.
Elaborate on that.
So there's a saying that givers need boundaries because takers don't have any.
Right.
And so I realize that to the outside world, people who are not in the nucleus of my life, I'm very good with my boundary setting. My boundary is my boundary, my no is my no, my yes is my yes, my no is my no, and it doesn't require an explanation. However, to the people that I love intimately, intensely, I realized within these last 6 months that my boundaries are my boundaries, but they're fluid.
And I think that that helps me to understand. I know for me, when I think about it that way, having those fluid boundaries, because I'm a giver and I'm a nurturer, and I'm that one that you can call anytime,
Midnight hour.
will do whatever it takes. But that fluidity got me into trouble because I literally taught people that I didn't have any boundaries.
Because it was fluid, because of the people that you love. And it may be something that you're not 100% comfortable with, but because it's a loved one, it's okay. I may not be okay with it, but it's them, or I'll allow it because of the person that I love, and even in friendships, relationships, even down to parenthood, you know, your boundaries are your boundaries and they're not negotiable and they're not fluid. And so what I had to learn, what I'm still currently learning, is that I had to restructure my boundaries and I had to feel okay with no, period.
And I think that was it. For me, I got to the point where my no period was there, but I got to it through hurt
Right.
because you took advantage
Right.
of me. And as they say, you took my kindness for weakness. And it almost became like it was my responsibility to do whatever, whenever. And when I decided that, wait a minute, this is kind of not like a two-way street, or, there needs to be some difference here. You got angry, or those persons got angry. And so I got hurt. Then my no became almost a hell no.
Yeah, and a resounding hell no. And you know, when you are having to rediscover and restructure your boundaries, you know, you have to. It gives you a moment of self reflection, and you realize that it may not have necessarily been the person versus what you were willing to allow.
Absolutely.
And so a person may not understand that they're overstepping, you know, your boundaries, or, you know, that they are out of line because what changed? You were doing this, you were receptive to it previously. And so if you had an issue with it before, why didn't you say anything?
And you know what happened to me is that was literally one of the reasons that I went to therapy, because I was in that season, and we talk about seasons. I was in that season where my requirements changed, but they couldn't give me my requirements because they didn't know that the requirements existed, because they didn't before. And so I had to sit in myself. And my therapist was the one, I know you've heard me say it, and she said, stop looking at people through the lens, through your own lens, and you can be angry about how you taught them to treat you. And I was like, why not? And she said, well, you've shifted. They're the same. You've changed. So now, are they still that friend? Because you're becoming different. And I found that in some things, it was, no, they're not. Because in becoming different, I became selfish. And that selfishness wasn't allowed, So, how do you think thinking about yourself and giving time and doing what happens for you for yourself, how is that played in, the boundaries, the evolution of friendships, and has it been, I know for me it was more on the not so good side for a long time, because people couldn't understand why what do you mean? No, what do you mean?
One thing I have to say is that I'm grateful because I'm extremely grateful for the relationships that I do have in my life.
Absolutely.
I really have very dope friendships, and 90% of those friendships are long term relationships, friendships, and so, but it still didn't negate from the fact of, you know, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And this may be a forever friend in this season, but then when there's a shift of seasons, that person may not carry over to the next season with you. And you have, and what I had to, the hardest lesson that I would say in my shift season is accepting it.
Because it's painful.
Because it's painful, because depending on um, the depth of the relationship, you know, it's the equivalency of a death when a friendship has changed, or when a friendship has ended, even if it doesn't end on bad terms. You know, if this is someone who you categorize for forever connection, and then the seasons have changed, and that shift has that shift is different now, and now that person isn't necessarily a forever connection. It's the equivalency of death.
And I absolutely agree with that, because, I too have had, we're talking about evolving friendships, right? I too have had friends, long term friends, close circle, small circle. I used to be proud of the fact that I would say I could count on my friends on one hand. I can't do that anymore. Thank God, because I'm a little older. I think I'm glad I got
Right.
a few
You
more.
added
Yeah,
added some
added
more
a
on the
few. Yes,
journey.
but they were always in stages, and I remember when I did lose a friendship, I went through a process. Like if it was bad, if I felt like I did a podcast earlier where I was talking about how I thought I was pouring into a friendship and it kind of turned around and it was used against me and it was very hurtful. So in that instance, it was like a death. I went through anger, then I went through grieving, then I went through what? Really? And then I went through, oh, okay. So it is a progression. It's a loss.
Yes, and not only is it a lot, but there's that moment of clarity and self reflection, because you can't require accountability to someone and not and but not require and or excuse me and not offer accountability to yourself, because the first thing is we have to be in tune with our own star player. That's the first
Absolutely.
thing. And
Absolutely.
so if you're not in if you can't look in the mirror and check yourself, you can't check anyone else, because if you don't have the ability to be authentic with the person who you're looking at in the mirror and then hold your own self accountable, then you don't know what accountability looks like to the next person.
And you can't accept it when those good friends hold you accountable.
And those are the relationships that I cherish with
Absolutely.
everything, because sometimes I am the problem. Sometimes I am the problem. And so, but then when life happens, because life is life, and you
Right.
know, it's a blessing to have someone that you love in your corner to say, "Hey, baby, you might want to take a step back and look at what you did to contribute to this."
And still love you in the process.
Right. So because I need you to hold me accountable with grace.
With grace, but hold me account and for me
Grace and respect.
that has to be a caveat for me to call you a friend, because I've had the pleasure of building friendships. I don't use the word lightly. Accountability, grace, and if you are my yes person, you're probably not my friend, because sometimes we need somebody to check us. If we don't check ourselves, you talked about looking in the mirror and being authentic when you look in the mirror. Sometimes, it's easy to look in the mirror and not see
Your own,
anything,
yeah.
that relates to me, because it's Shan's fault and it's her or him, or whatever the relationship is, and so I think it's real important for that person or those persons to be able to say, I need you to get it all the way together.
And if if they love you authentically, it comes with grace. It comes with respect, because you have to think what I do is I look at my friendships, right? My long term friendships, my sisterhoods, because I'm definitely a girl's girl. Like
Yes,
sisterhood is important. Just like
very much
children
so.
need a village, we as women
We
we need a
need a village.
village.
We do need a village.
And sometimes that village looks different. Sometimes you have your party village where these are my surface level friends. You see what I mean? And they are my good time friends. But at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Here are the three or four.
right, and I need to pray, I can't call my party friend because I don't know what relationship you have with God, because our friendship hasn't gone to that level.
Right.
Yeah, but and I think to myself, what's the foundation of our relationship? Is the foundation vulnerability? Is the foundation,
That's good.
authenticity? Is the foundation reciprocity? Because there are certain things, just like in your romantic relationships, you all relationships, whether they are romantic or platonic, it's still like a bank account. If you are depositing in that relationship, reciprocity will come out.
If you require it, though. Because being a giver, we can we can often, especially in those surface level friendships, not require reciprocity. And I think when we start to want to evolve them into deeper relationships, if we haven't set that basis, I think the base should be the same.
Across the board.
Those base requirements should be the same. Where we go from there, base, reciprocity, respect. Like you said, for you, authenticity, party crew. Same thing. Because you've got to respect the fact that I'm not going to get sloppy drunk
Right.
and you're not going to force me to.
Right.
Right?
And I'm not going to allow you to.
That part. And you got to be okay with that. But I think if we don't have that across the board, then when we start to require it, the evolution into something deeper gets stifled. And I have become accustomed to knowing where my friendship boundaries are, but the other person may not have that idea. How do you handle, you think I'm a surface friend and you treat me as a surface friend, but I treat you, I want you to be a deep friend. Because you said we have reciprocity, so I can call you whenever I get ready.
And so, what's interesting is there was a time when I would say if I've known you under 3 years, I don't care about the relationship. And I had this conversation with an associate at the time, and I considered them an associate because I did know you under 3 years, and we were having a conversation, and I said, you know what, I'm okay if we don't talk today or tomorrow. I'm okay with that because the relationship is not it isn't deep enough. Like I haven't invested enough into our connection, and so if we are no longer connected, I'm okay because you're a surface friend. And one thing about me is I am very blunt.
Yeah, to a fault.
Yeah, to a fault. And I'm learning as I get older that it's it's not what you say, but it's how you say it.
And I'm gonna take that back, and because I definitely don't mean to a fault. I think one of the best qualities about you is that you shoot straight. You are what you might call blunt, but I think if people hear the heart and not just the bluntness or the way that it comes out, that can kind of buffer
Right.
that, right? So hearing you say you're thinking of you're working on how it comes out, but more often than not, if people are paying attention, it's not coming out that way.
But it also depends on what lens people are paying attention in. You see what I mean? So if you are determined to see me as the aggressor, it
Then
doesn't matter.
But see, then it doesn't even matter how I say
Right,
it.
because the lens, the focal point that you have is there's an aggression, there's a negativity, and so I could dress it up really pretty for you, but it's still gonna come out like venom because that's what you're expecting, or even projection. And so what I had to learn, my one of my best friends, we've actually had we've been in each other's lives for 27 years, which is a long time, very long
Very
time,
long time.
very long time, especially since I'm only like 21. So
Yeah.
but we had a conversation, and it was a very in-depth conversation, and she taught me something, and she said, when I'm going through things, I don't necessarily want to talk to you, Shan. And at first I was like, wait a minute, because I'm a fixer.
Right.
Come here, baby. Let me make this right for you. Come here. Let me hold you. Let me figure out what's going on. Let's talk about it. And so she said, when I'm going through things, I look for my surface level friends because they're not invested,
They won't tell me anything other
or
than what I want to
or they're not
hear.
invested into me. So they can't look in my eyes and see that I'm saying, "Oh, I'm fine." But I'm really not. I'm crying. And she said, but when it comes to you, because of the vulnerability that we have in the depths of our relationship, I can't tell you that I'm okay. Because you like, no, 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 no. I like you may say that you're okay, but I'm connected to you. So you don't sound okay. And then my next thing is I'm gonna get ready to pull up on you.
And I think that that is so much a part of a genuine relationship is being able to call a spade out even when you're not saying that that's it, and that is the crux of a healthy and an evolving deep friendship where you know in my voice that I'm not okay. I had a girlfriend call me, deep girlfriend call me the other day. I heard the crackling in her. Oh, I'm just calling to check on you because you know I've had my knee replaced. I'm just calling to check on you, but I heard the crackling, and I'm like, well, what's wrong? First of all, it's the middle of the day. You know, we
And
talk.
I'm grateful that you called to check on me.
Yes,
However,
but what's wrong? Because that's an indication. And then the tears just started flowing, and the exposure of what she was feeling, you know, in that moment. That's what I need in a friend, because it's so easy to say, oh, I'm good.
and again also understanding that although we may we may have this deep connection, but like I stated earlier, life be life. Life be lifing. And so I may have the intent to reach out into you and check on you, but when I'm in the thick of my own things, I'm trying to save me.
And I understand.
But I had to learn that it is okay, Shantez, to pull back when you are going through your own things because self preservation. I gotta take care of me first. Because if I'm not taking care of me and if I'm not whole, I can't be any help to you.
And you know, Shane, that's one of the times when you realize the depth of your friendship. When you start to, I didn't pull away from you for any other reason other than the fact that I need some time to do me. Whatever that is in that moment, however often those moments happen, I need that time. I don't want to have to pick up the phone and say, hey, you know what? I need a couple of days. I'm just going to do me, because now we're going to get into a whole conversation because we have that level of friendship, right? I need to, and it's hard for some people to take that, okay, in this friendship, I'm going to build some time for me. I'm going to build some self care for me. And my depth of friendship, my depth of it has not changed. But I've got to establish some different boundaries,
Yes. Yes.
you know? Um, and I have to. It's non negotiable, you know?
And
So,
I'm okay with being okay with reestablishing those boundaries, and feeling confident in it. And as my friend, as my sister, I ask that you see my heart.
well, I've had both.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I ask that you see my heart because like I stated, my delivery isn't always going to come out correct. And sometimes my actions are going to say one thing because although I know what my intent is, what my actions look like to you may not match my intent. But as my sister, as my girl, my best friend, I ask that you know my heart. And I feel like when you have certain friendships and relationships, and when I know your heart or you know mine, certain stuff we don't even have to argue over. First of all, we're not arguing. It's a conversation.
And it can be a light conversation. And when I'm out of doing me, we can have a critical conversation. Because that moment that I had, even though you didn't interrupt it, you let me have, I felt some kind of way about that. Now I expect you to have an ear to hear that this is my feelings about that. I know that you needed it, and I think that that also defines the depth of our relationship. If
Yes.
we can talk about very critical issues, not argue, have healthy debate. We don't have to agree.
Intense conversations.
Intense conversation. And we can get up and have a mimosa and go have some food
And then
and
that's
keep it
it.
moving.
And the trajectory of our relationship hasn't
Doesn't
changed.
change.
That's the thing. And I know that for me, especially I will say within the last 5 years, I've had to learn that it's okay to have these difficult conversations. And if we are having difficult conversations and I am in fear of losing your friendship because we're having difficult conversations, our season is
Yes,
done.
I was just going. Our season is coming to
Our
an
season
end.
is coming to an end.
It's coming to an
And
end.
that's okay. And one of the things, my mother, she is my God, she's a phenomenal woman.
She
She's a
is.
woman of wisdom, and she's a woman of different layers. But I also call her a parable woman as well, because that lady's gonna give me a lot of stuff. And so we were talking about a situation, and she said, Shantez, because my mother, she doesn't like to refer to me as Shan. She's gonna Shantez, and she said, Shan, sometimes you have to respect when God is ready to end the season, because you may know it's time for that season to end. You see the signs, but because remember how here we are back to boundaries. Because I love you, my boundaries are fluid, and so that may be a thing. But sometimes that the separation is orchestrated by God, and when God ends that season, you have to let God be God.
And we can, there's some, in some instances, with the children or with the hubby or with the relationship, we got that. We could do, but it was hard for me to see and sit back and say, you orchestrated this because it was hard. It was
Because I couldn't
hurtful.
see past my pain,
And I couldn't see,
past my pain.
that he did it. But, in one particular instance, I remember sitting on my patio and that it came to me. You did this. Hurtful, long term, deep. But he did it in layers because he started with the breakdown of the reciprocity.
That was the first stage.
But he started with the breakdown of respecting my right to say I need my time. And he just kept doing this. And sometimes I peeked in and I saw it, even called it. But that love, right? And then he just severed it in a way that wasn't cute. And I'm
and
like,
you and you left with the wait a minute.
yeah,
What just happened?
what just
What
happened?
just happened? And I can tell you that within the last 45 days, I realized that relationship or that sisterhood can be very, very strong, but can it withhold transition?
Sometimes it
And
can't.
sometimes it can't, because, you know, what does the transition look like? What are we transitioning from? Are you comfortable in the own transition? Are you comfortable in the decision that you are making to transition? Because if I'm not comfortable in my own transition, then I'm going to look at you like you're not comfortable in my transition. You know what I mean?
Or I'm going to use you to undergird my lack of comfortability with my transition.
And then I'm going to make you the problem.
But to me, transition is, that's a really good term. What happened is I began to transition, and I've learned over the years that I began to transition up and evolve in my being, my conversation, and so the expectation is, we're here, and I began to transition, and that was an issue. So that's a very good term.
There are two layers to transitions, in my opinion. When you are transitioning, excuse me, are you ascending or are you descending? You see what I mean? And so if we have a sisterhood and I'm in my season of transition, but I'm ascending because I found the love of my life. I found a different career. There's a lot of the manifestation of blessings are happening. But if my sister is in a different season of her life, it's not that she's not happy for you. She can't see past.
She just may not see
She
it.
may not be able to see it, but that is when the selfishness come in space. I just had but at the transition of the new year, I had a deep self-reflecting situation happen, and I had to say, you know what? God is teaching me to be selfish in this season. And that is foreign to me. I don't even know what selfishness looks like because I'm a passionate lover, whether it's my friends or it's my husband, but my family, I love with passion. And sometimes my passion can get misconstrued.
And I tell you what it meant, what I say. Being selfish is not self-centered. Well, being selfish is not self-centered. That's what I learned. I have a right to be selfish. In the selfishness, I'm still not self-centered in the fact that, everything revolves around me. But if this little piece of the world right here needs to happen for me right now, then I'm going to need you to be good with it. You know what I mean?
And that's why I need, not only that I'm going to need you to be good with it, I'm going to need you to give me grace.
To grow.
To grow.
Well, definitely a conversation to be continued. But thank you so much for coming, and just love you, love you. You all, please follow Shantez, Shan Brown across social media. As per usual, follow, like, and subscribe to @Susan Appleton across social media @Power Conversations. Thank you for joining the conversation. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome.